fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Salt Strong live stream and podcast. I'm your host, Rich Natoli, one of the Salt Strong coaches generally serving the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. And as always, I am joined by the lovely and talented Ed Gobo, owner of Captain Hank's Tackle. Ed, how you doing?
Doing good, Rich. Doing good. Got out togging today, so can talk a little on that. And it's a good day. It's a good day.
Yeah, and I did not get out togging today. I have not been fishing for a few weeks. So hoping to change that this week, get out on the water and get in on the fun. Everybody, we have a really good show tonight. I want to let everyone know that this podcast and live stream on the Salt Strong channel is supported by the Insider Member Club. And that's now the organization that I work for. And that is the organization that I think everybody should check out. So I would just suggest, if you haven't checked it out, there's a link in the description of this. Go in and just check it out and see what it's all about. It is a group of, over 35,000 anglers from all over the country, pretty much every state, actually. So all the way up through the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, all the way down the coast, through the Gulf. That's where most of the folks are. Man, you get tackle discounts, tons of information on the water fishing reports, and a really cool tool for the Smart Fishing app, which really, if you want to hit the water and you don't want to do any planning, this has got you. It'll actually show you spots in your area based on a ton of different variables, including tide and trends and conditions, seasons, winds, where to fish. So it's a good kind of like cheat code, especially when you're fishing a new area. I would just suggest everyone go in there and check it out. But we have a great episode tonight. We have coming on, I'm going to bring her on right now. We have Kristen, who is PhillyGirlFishing on YouTube. Kristen, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing well.
I'm doing great. I'm excited that you're on. For those that haven't followed this live stream before it came over to Salt Strong, you were a guest, and I was unfortunately not able to be on that one. So we've never actually met.
Right.
So I'm excited. I listened to the live stream while I was watching my son play in a playoff soccer game in the spring. So I had two things going on at once there. And man, there's so many things I just want to talk to you about. And we're in the middle of tog season.
Yes, we are.
And that is one of your you slay those tog.
Man, I just got back from a trip to Rhode Island yesterday, and it's one of those trips that you live for. To see that many double digits come up at one time, it's like, what? So yeah, definitely having fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, so we're going to go through, everyone, I guess really just a season update with how you're doing, where you've been fishing, because you don't just fish out your back door like Ed does. You know, if Ed drives more than 15 minutes, he calls it a road trip.
Hey, listen, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Right. Yeah,
There's a house right down the street for sale.
Kristen is driving 5-6 hours. I don't know how you must be getting a lot of hotel rooms. Either that or you're just crazy.
Yeah. That or I'm kind of crazy. That yesterday's trip was a one drive. Like I literally left midnight Sunday morning and got back home about 10:30 at night. So,
yeah, that's difficult. I saw. Well, you were in Rhode Island yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Was fishing Block Island yesterday, so
that's dedication.
You got to go to where the fish are.
That is true.
At least that's my motto. That's how I feel about it.
I agree with you. I keep trying to tell Ed, maybe he'll listen to you. He doesn't listen to me about anything. So
road trip.
Hey,
yep. Here comes his excuse.
Figure something out, and I'll make it happen. How's that sound?
Yeah, we'll see about that.
I'm not against it, but when I have the pretty darn good fishing in my backyard, why leave?
I mean, in my defense, right, I have to travel to get the salt water regardless. So it's kind of like, yes, if I lived in Jersey, would I be as inclined to actually go and travel to other states? Maybe, maybe not. But if I already have to drive an hour to get to the water, I I might as well go ahead and make it 3, 4, and get to where the fishing is really good. I will say, New Jersey togging is a lot more difficult than Rhode Island. I will definitely say that.
Yeah, we had Captain Halkias on, and he was, I think it was him, where he was saying it's almost just like, or no, I think it was actually Frank Mahalik said, when you're up there, it's just kind of like drop and just every drop you're reeling in a fish. He said it's like fishing in an aquarium. And
almost, I mean, yeah, there are dead times.
Yeah.
But compared to New Jersey, it does feel like that. It's like, oh, look, I literally, the last video I just put up, I put some crab on the hook, and within, I don't know, 5-10 seconds, I already felt my rod tip going like that, and boom, pull up a 7-pounder. It's like that kind of stuff does not happen on a regular in New Jersey. At least I haven't experienced it. Let me rephrase it that way.
Right.
Definitely not today.
Well, I saw that video, and I was, it was a great video, by the way. And I knew you were kind of nuts because you started, if it was the last one, you started in the dark in your car.
Yeah.
And you were, or I guess you were sitting there waiting to get on.
Waiting. Yep.
Yeah. So you were there for a while, but man, you were just bringing them in one after another. What did you have, 9 or 10 keepers by the end?
I had 17.
17?
17. And that's generous. There were some that were like, maybe they might have been 16-ish. So I just didn't even count them. But yeah, that was like the most bananas type of fishing day for tog I've ever had, which beat the time when I went a month ago and caught 15. So yeah, that was just for the first fish to be, 8 pounds, go to the second fish to be 7 pounds. That kind of fishing, honestly, for me, because this is the second year of me doing tog fishing, is giving me practice. And I always tell anybody, especially, y'all see the guitars behind me, like a lot of this is muscle memory. So it's like, if you don't get the practice of what the little bites feel like, differentiating between the smaller fish and the bigger fish, it's really hard to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and what's good and what's not.
I'll tell you what, I'm looking at the chat as you're talking, and there are a lot of people that agree with a lot of the things that have been said already. We've got people from all over, first of all. So I see Jack West in there, James Flynn, Crabbing and Fishing. We have Antonio from Boston. So Antonio, good to see you here. John Hutchinson, Evil Genius, who is, he's a Salt Strong Insider from Delaware. And we've got a bunch of other people, but there was a good point brought up there that there are a lot of people that live right on the coast, Ed, that never go fishing. So maybe they should move out, drop those property values, and I'll move on in.
I'll move there too.
It's affordable. My area is affordable.
Yeah. So we'll have to look into that. Chris and I, we can move down and be neighbors. We'll come down and and we'll move far away from Ed in New Jersey. Yeah, we'll move far away, so he has to move closer to us instead of us moving closer.
I was here first.
All right, so let's jump into this. So, Kristen, let's start with people that aren't familiar with you, who haven't seen your channel yet. Why don't you talk about what range you're looking for when you're looking to book a trip to go out and fish for tog?
Yep. So generally, when I started fishing for tog out of state, the first trip was Rhode Island. Went on the Fish Finders trip last October, went on an island current and caught 2 keepers. For me, not knowing anything of what I was doing, like that was impressive for me. I was like, oh yeah, I'm coming back here. So generally, I'm going from either Rhode Island. I haven't gotten a chance to fish Montauk yet, but I hear that that's also pretty good, like fishing the Long Island Sound kind of area. And then obviously Jersey, it's the closest place to me, and then Delaware. Those are the 3-4-ish main places I've kind of been fishing or looking to fish since I've been doing some tog fishing. So
have you made it down to Maryland?
Not yet. I have a trip booked.
Okay.
Fingers crossed the weather stays good. I don't want to bring it up too much because I'm like, I just want to get down there. But Maryland, from what I hear, is pretty much like the mecca of the biggins. Like you will... 15 and 16 pounders is not out of the ordinary to go in Maryland,
Right. Well, I was going to say let's get something together and grab a few other people and there's a specific boat down there. I'm not going to mention it that I'd like to get out on. It might be the one you're looking at too.
might be.
Yeah.
We'll talk.
So I mean anywhere, but the tog even go. Don't worry, Ed, you're coming. I'm going to drive down and pick you up and bring you down with me. So.
Oh, now you want to chat? No.
Robbie shouted me out, so I was waving to him. I'm
okay.
I'm not sure
okay.
who he is, but hello, Robbie.
Yeah. So the Tautog though, the range of them, so they're going a lot further south. So we actually have people down in Virginia. The Bay Bridge is a really good spot. All the way down to Virginia Beach, all the way up the coast, and there's different seasons. So what are you looking at right now as far as? Well, it sounds like the bite in Rhode Island is still on fire.
Still pretty good, actually, and that's what the captain was telling me yesterday. He said they get a lot of big fish in December. So Rhode Island's Tautog season is going to end on the 31st, I believe. So a lot of the party boats are pretty much kind of wrapping up in this next week or two. That and then weather. It's just we've been getting so much gale force winds. I tell you what, I don't think I've had, a couple of friends were saying there's so many trips canceled like in the last 2 months. It just seems like 6 weeks or so. It's just been so many storms. So yeah, I mean, right now it's Rhode Island, but then obviously Jersey, we have a little bit more time. So I'm going to try to get a couple trips in Jersey. And then, like I said, Maryland in January. So after January, for me, like this is still pretty cold for me. I think y'all, in some of my videos I have made mention, I don't really handle cold very well. I just really enjoy the Tautog bite. And I'm toughing through it, wearing like 5 layers and hand warmers and all types of nonsense just to try to stay warm. But I think like probably mid-January is probably where I tap out.
All right, so we'll get out there before then, or we'll find someplace with a heated rail and a nice warm cabin.
There you go.
That's when you don't mind when the boat moves a lot, because everybody gets to run inside. We had a picture from, I think it was 2 years ago now. I was out on a trip with John Creeley. Well, you know John, and he's going to be on in a few weeks also for another episode, by the way. But we were out there and it was so cold, we weren't even thinking about it. And this spray was hitting the rods, and every single rod that was outside was totally frozen over. I mean, totally frozen, like ridiculous frozen. Luckily people noticed. We had to run out there, grab all the rods and bring them into the heat. And it took what, 15, 20 minutes to get them all de-iced so people could fish. So luckily we did it in time to, we could still fish. But that, to me, that I love that. I love that weather. So
y'all are crazy.
Man.
It's too cold.
That is too cold. I went out in February this year. Yeah, electric mitts or something. I went out in February this year. Went out on the Jamaica too. This is when they're doing like their 12, 14-hour trips.
Yep.
And I had a little cabin fever. I hadn't fished since like the first week in January. I said, I'm going to do it. I think the temperature was probably maybe 28 was the high.
Yeah.
And that's not including the wind chill. The worst decision I feel like I've made fishing ever. I caught one short. I was probably turning shades of purple and red from the cold. I was so miserable. I was like, yep. Nope. I was sitting in my car, right? Exactly. I was sitting in the car waiting to get on the boat, like trying to stay warm before you get on the boat. And the gentleman parked next to me, we both got out the car. He said, "What's wrong with us?" I said, "I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out myself. But I hope we have a good day to make this all worth it."
Yeah, and then to have a difficult day, that's the worst.
Yeah.
But you know what? Look,
but when they bite, it's fun.
Yeah. There are a lot of people in here in this chat right now and watching that are from all over the place, and they fish the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. And I get a bet right now. Actually, I'll ask people in the chat, put in the chat if this is not true for you. If you can't say this quote, I have made some very questionable decisions when hitting the water, fishing the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. And I bet you nobody says, not me. I bet you everybody does it at some point because we have the difficulty. It's not like Texas, where you can fish and it's nice and cold right now for them, but this is where they're catching the big fish. They're on the big reds and they got the flounder bite going and the speckled trout. It's not like that. I mean, this is like, it's kind of torture.
A little bit.
Self-inflicted.
It's self-inflicted, but it's like the scars that you're proud of. You come home and you can't move your fingers for a while. You're happy for that long car ride back to Philadelphia because that's what's going to get you back to the land of the living.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, nice and warm. I did have a nice little scissor snip me cutting crab yesterday with my finger. So we get wounds every once in a while, hooks, and one guy was trying to flip a fish that ended up being bigger than he thought. I think it was like 5-6 pounds. Almost broke his rod tip. So I just instinctively reach over and like grab the line and flip it over. So now I have a nice little braid cut in my finger. But those are the battle scars that, makes it worth it. It's like, hey man, we're catching fish, so it's a good time.
Yeah, I mean, for tog fishing, you're going to get those. You're going to get a lot of those, right? And tog are, they're going to stick you too with those fins, and they're so slippery. But it's kind of like the striper thumb with tog. You get the scissors and the crabs, and you get cut up grabbing the leaders and everything like that.
Well, not even that. The juices from them crabs, they tear my hands apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like acid. It's like acid hitting your hands. All right. So you're fishing pretty much the entire coast. We're going to get you down to Maryland at some point. Hopefully your trip goes off and you get out there and get the new world record out of Ocean City.
I like it.
Yeah. Mr. Westerfield, she's coming for you. So let's go through your last 4 or 5 trips. Let's talk about the Rhode Island one, because that was the most recent. So where were you fishing? What boat were you fishing? And tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So was fishing with Wisecracking Charters. This was on the 6-pack boat. So not on the Stellar Sea, but on the lower end. So that was my first time on this boat. I honestly got interested in fishing in Rhode Island because of Fishing Grubs. Like he was a mate on that boat before. I was watching his YouTube videos and I said, they have some pretty good fishing. I got to try to get up there. So finally got the opportunity to do it. The bite in Newport, Rhode Island really died, evidently, from the last couple of big blows that they had the previous week. I was fishing out of Newport the weekend before. So this was like one of the few boats that actually went out. I know a lot of guys whose trips got canceled in Rhode Island on Sunday because of the wind. But we made it through the sound, got to Block Island. Immediately, as soon as we get there, fish are coming over the rail in like 4 minutes, So like, I think we had a full boat limit. I want to say by maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. And it's like 3-4 hours in, you know what I mean? So then we just kind of went, big boy hunting or big girl hunting. And we joked at one drop that we called it Jurassic Park, because we literally dropped down within 5 minutes of getting to the drop. 3 double-digit tog come up. I think it was an 11.5, a 10.5, and a 10.3, something like that.
Wow.
I catch a 5-pounder, and I'm like, I'm so close. Like, I keep being next to the guy catching the 10-pound fish, and I'm just like, so close. But then we had a guy who caught an 8-pounder, so it was actually pretty funny. And I'm probably going to include that in the video. That's going to be 2 videos from now. But he caught an 8-pounder, and they were going to go take the picture. And he was like, "Can I get in the picture?" And they're like, "No, your fish is too small. It didn't make the 10 fish cut. See you later." But it was pretty hilarious. He's like, "Man, like caught an 8-pound fish, and I can't get in the big fish picture."
That doesn't happen often.
It does not. It does. Right. And I was mad. I pulled up a 6-pounder like any other time, especially in New Jersey. I don't even think I've caught a 6-pounder in New Jersey.
I say the 6 is my personal best in Jersey.
Yeah, like a 6 is something to be excited about in New Jersey. So, yeah, it's one of those things where you're catching a 6-pound fish and you're like, oh, this sucks. This is like it's so crazy the perspective change when you travel somewhere. So, 2 trips before that, I went and fished New Jersey, and when I put that video up, I remember a guy saying in the comments, he was like, "Man, I'd be mad if I went on a trip and only caught 2 keepers." I said, "What? This is New Jersey. I'm excited." I had to go back through my catch list and say, this is the first New Jersey trip I actually caught 2 keepers. You know what? I'll pat myself on the back. Like, hey, I did it, because this New Jersey is definitely not as easy. So, yeah, quite a bit of a contrast between New Jersey's opening season weekend. I couldn't make it out on opening day. I had to work, but and then being in Rhode Island. So, yeah, that last trip, I think yesterday's trip had, I want to say 5 double digits on the trip. One guy caught 2 of them, like to the point where by the time at the end of the day, when we were still hunting for Big Bertha, that's what I called it, the big girls. Yeah. He just like, "Can I get clam? Because I want to catch cod." Like, if you caught 2 double digits, you're just like, "Yeah, I'm ready to catch another species." So.
Yeah.
Did everybody mug his spot?
Oh, yeah. Did we? Man, me and my friend actually mugged him. That he just was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and fish on the other side. We were like, no, come back. Like, I really don't want to kick you out your spot, but I mean, if you're going to leave and make room for us, we'll take it.
That's great. I mean, it's funny, you saying you have a 6-pounder, and it's not often, as you said, in New Jersey, if you have a 6-pounder, you're in that picture. You have that 6-pounder, they're turning around. They're like, Kristen, can you take the picture for us? You're not allowed anywhere near it.
Yep.
Oh man, that's great. So that's Rhode Island. Now, talk a little bit about the area that you're fishing around Block. Obviously, I doubt you know them, but I'm not going to ask for spots. But what was the depth, and what were you using rigs? Were you using jigs?
Oh yeah. So that was interesting. So this is the first time I actually tog fished in Block Island. I fished Block Island for fluke a couple of times through the summertime. So we were actually fishing pretty deep, and we were mainly fishing kind of like either boulders or ledges. So those big fish were living on boulder, which is cool. I like that because you're a lot less likely to get snagged.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I probably only lost a couple of rigs. There's a couple times I got snagged, but it's not one of the snaggiest places. But we kind of went between reefs to a rocky area to a couple different spots with boulders. So we fished the whole gamut. And then from a range of depths, I think the shallowest we fished was probably about 55 feet, and the deepest was about 100. So that was interesting because I said, I always try to, challenge myself. So I was like, I still want to try jigging deep. Never jigged that deep before. I did manage to pull up 2 fish on the jig. One was probably about 4.5, 5 pounds, and the other one was the picture that I had put up on Instagram. It was probably 5.5-ish, pushing 6-ish. So that bigger fish. But I definitely struggled with the jig in the deeper water. It's completely different. And fishing for the fish in general in deeper water, I definitely noticed a difference in the fight. It's almost feels like they give it way easier. I could imagine they're probably getting exhausted from coming up from so deep so fast.
Right.
So it's kind of like you get them once you get past that first third of the water column, wherever they're, living at that depth, it seemed like it was kind of easy and just kind of dead weight, and you just kind of pull them up. So yeah, definitely deeper water.
Okay. All right. And the trip before that, well, you were also up in Rhode Island. Where was the last trip that you were not up in Rhode Island?
The last one was that New Jersey opening weekend. So that was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. About 3 weeks ago. Yep.
Okay. And how did you do on that one?
That one was 2 keepers, 7 shorts. I think 2 keepers, 7 shorts. So again, I'm counting shorts because this is New Jersey, and I will count shorts for Jersey. So yeah, that wasn't too bad. I was fishing next to a guy who was absolutely slaying it. I was like, the captain was like, yeah, I wouldn't fish next to him if I were you. I'm like, well, at least I'll get a clinic and learn, because it was just like, as soon as he would drop down, he was getting bites. And what was very interesting was he was using a conventional rod turned backward, like using a spinning reel on a conventional rod. And he still caught 7 or 8 keepers. So I guess it kind of goes to show, if you know what your gear feels like and you know what that fish bite feels like, it's literally you can catch them on anything. I mean, it was a good rod. I think it was the Shimano Terramar, which I know, one of my friends, she fishes with that too.
But he put a spinning reel on it?
He had a spinning reel on it, and it still had the trigger. So
why did he do that? He just wanted to use the rod?
I have no idea, but he was killing it. He was one of the high hooks for the day on that trip. And what was interesting, I was fishing starboard side. I normally fish starboard. In the morning, it was a port side bite. That was when I was on the Osprey down in Atlantic City, and I'm kind of hard headed on spots. Like if I pick a spot, I kind of want to just fish it for that day. And I waited too long to move to the other side of the boat. But in the morning, we had one guy, I forgot how many keepers he had. I think he had 10 keepers or something crazy, port side bow, and he was just killing it. So that's the thing, with the bigger party boats, sometimes it's just the spots. It depends on where the fish are sitting, depending on the wind that day. They might just be living on that side of the reef or the wreck or the rocks. And if you're on the other side of a big, 80-foot boat, unless you get that spot and start mugging people, it might be hard for you to get those fish.
Yeah. Are you fishing towards the back or towards the front or the middle?
Yeah. This time I did the back. A lot of times as it gets colder, I tend to fish the back to kind of hide from the wind a little bit. Fluke season, I'm bow all day. Like I rarely ever fish the stern, but I generally stay at the back of the boat in the cold season.
Gotcha. What boat did you go out on when you went out in New Jersey?
That was on the Osprey. Yeah, so the
Okay.
Osprey that comes down from New York down
Yeah.
to Atlantic City.
Or did they have conch for bait?
No, I don't think I saw anybody using that. But the cool thing about Osprey is that they have whites, so you don't have to pay extra for white leggers. But most of the fish were biting, at least in my area, the guys I was fishing with, everybody was using whites. I don't think people were really using greens too much.
I went on Osprey, was it last year or the year before, and they had conch. So the guys were in the back of the boat banging on, trying to break the shells. It sounded like they were building a house on the back of the boat.
Yeah.
They have conch, go to the front.
Yeah, Ed's not a fan of that.
Oh, it's so loud.
Really?
It was terrible.
Yeah.
It sounded like they were building a house.
I can
it was
only
all
imagine.
day.
So I was out on the 17th. So right before you were out, you were probably out around the 19th then.
I think it was 19th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we ended up going out, and it was really difficult, but there was a bite. There was a difficult bite for Tog, and we ended up just catching a whole ton. I'm conservatively estimating this at a minimum of 250 striped bass through the blitzes. Did you guys do any of that on the Osprey, or were you just Tog all day that day?
No, we stayed committed. I know the smaller boats were doing that a lot, doing a combination of the Tog and the striped bass, because striped bass is it's so good because the water's been so warm, we're still hanging out. But no, we just stuck straight to Tog.
Okay. Yeah, that was my only Tog fishing so far. So we did a good amount of it. There were some nice Tog pulled up. I had a keeper and a few of the shorts. I also count them. But in New Jersey, no, I count them. I didn't count the striper. I was working on the video, and it wasn't until I went through the video editing that I saw how many I caught. But I didn't keep track during the day. But it's been an interesting year in Jersey, and you haven't been down to Delaware yet this year, right?
Haven't been yet. I'm supposed to be this week. So again, fingers crossed. If the weather holds up, then that is the plan. So hopefully we'll have that. But I did fish in Delaware 2 times in the spring and then last December. So the Delaware bite has been pretty good too. Again, still it seems like a lot more opportunity to kind of get more bites in Delaware than in Jersey. But it's still pretty good. I enjoy fishing and definitely fishing Delaware. And it's only 2.5 hours from the house. So that's a lot more probable than that 5-6 hour drive up north.
Yeah. You know what's interesting though about Delaware, a lot of times they'll fish the same spots as the Cape May fleet, South Jersey.
Yes.
So, talk about what Reefside 11 and all of those, they're heading way out, and they kind of meet, they meet out there. I have not been down there for Tog yet. I love fishing Delaware. Delaware to me is just, well, first of all, there's not a ton of backwater that you can fish down there, at least not compared to New Jersey. So, but out front, I love it out front. And I've always loved the Delaware Bay, even though it's half a dead zone these days. I still love it. So I plan on getting down there. So when you were out there, so all these trips, are you typically, you mentioned you were catching some fish on a jig. Are you typically using rigs? And if you're using rigs, what rigs are you using?
Yeah, rigs. I'm definitely more comfortable with rigs, but I think it's honestly just because that's what I started on. But while I'm still fresh at it is why I'm challenging myself to learn the jigs. I don't get stuck in just one method of fishing, because I do feel like a lot of the trips I've been on in New Jersey, probably from last November up through now, a lot of the guys that were catching the majority of fish were on the jig. I was just reading the post. Was it Mohawk or Explorer, Ocean Explorer? I don't remember, but one of the boats were saying how it was mainly a jig bite today. And that's the guys that were using the jigs were the most successful. So it's one of those things where if the conditions allow it, that's when I'm kind of get practice. I think Delaware was the first place where I was kind of able to really start practicing and bringing up fish. And then I had a really good trip in Rhode Island last month where a lot of my fish were on the jig, but it's like the current thing is the biggest piece for me. Like when it's slack tide, it's a lot easier for me to feel the bite. I've been playing around with like different line sizes and like talking to different friends and different YouTubers. Like, what are you guys using on your jig setup? Because, sometimes it feels like I can feel everything. I'm doing good. And then other times it's like, I can't tell if I'm on the bottom, like,
Right.
because especially with the jig bite, a lot of times the fish will just pick it up and swim away with it. And actually in the last video, that second fish that I had caught, no, the first one, I barely felt it, but I also had 30 pound braid on. I had just got a new reel. I got the Saltist, and everybody, all my, the guys I fish with, the fish finders guys, are like, you need to use 30 pound braid, da 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 da. So I'm like, all right, I'll beef it up. I'll try 30, but I just did not feel comfortable with 30. Like to go from 15 to 30, I felt a great difference, and I was like, nah, I'm going back to 15. So when I fished yesterday, I used 15 pound braid. Usually the 30 pound leader. Sometimes I'll bump it up to 40, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially with the jig, you can lose contact with the bottom. The jig's on the bottom, but you're losing contact because you have such a bow in that line. So when you're pulling it, you're just pulling the slack in, but it looks tight. It feels tight until you start reeling it. And then you'll feel you'll know this is happening when you're snagged. And you get to reel a few turns. So you brought in 10, 15 feet and all of a sudden you're snagged. You're like, well, I should have felt that. No, it's because you have that heavy line. I'll say that when we were out there catching all those striped bass, I was using 10 pound test, and we were catching, most of them were keeper size, right? So they were up to 38. The vast majority of them, there were some under, in the mid 20s. And there were some that were over. I had a couple that were overs, all on 10 pound tests, right? So if you're going to jig 10 pound test, 15 pound test, it's all the leader that's going to save you from breaking off. It has nothing to do with the line, because when you're pulling in 25 pound bass, you can certainly pull in a 25 pound tog with that. Maybe go to 15 then, if you want to get a world record.
Yeah, let's do it.
I was going to say the exact same thing, Rich.
I mean, it's the drag on the line, and a lot of people don't realize that, and I think part of it is a lot of people come from bass fishing, freshwater. They're throwing 50, 65 pound braid on there so they can rip it through the lily pads. Yeah. And look, they hook it and they just reel it. They don't, they just reel it in. They rip the lily pads out.
Another key piece of that too is the drag on your reel. Getting your drag on your reel set right. You can put a 50 pound fish on 10 pound, no problem. If the reel's right.
Absolutely. I'll give the story. My grandfather back in the day caught a 76, 72 pound black drum, and he was on 10 pound test.
Wow.
On a flounder rod. Yeah. I mean, it took him 2 hours. Just at the time, it was almost a state record. He missed by a couple ounces, but it just goes to show, if you know how to fight it and you have, the right drag set and the right leader and everything, you're fine. He ended up boating it. They ended up keeping it. God, we had drum forever. I was just a kid at the time. But, the line when you're jigging does need to get scaled down. Now, what rod are you using when you're out there fishing in the fall? And is it different than in the spring?
Yeah. So I would say, I keep my rods pretty much the same all the way through. So my favorite rod right now has been my Phoenix Titan, and it's a long fall version of that rod. So that's a 710 heavy. I think it can throw between 6 ounces to 17 ounces. So I've used it for a fluke. I've used it on amberjack when I was fishing down in North Carolina. I'm using it for tog. That thing to me is like my jack of all trades, like that. I'm going for that rod. And I've been fishing it so long now for the year in different species. I've gotten real comfortable on what it feels like when I have different types of fish on and what that bite is. So what's cool about it is it has a really sensitive tip, but it's a really, really, really strong, stiff backbone. Where as long as I load that thing up, either setting the hook high enough when I'm tog fishing or on any other fish where it's bending over in half and kind of, using that backbone, I don't have to worry about working too hard for the hook set. So I would say that's my go-to rig rod. I've been bouncing back and forth with what's my backup rig rod and then my jigging rod. So the jigging rod I've been using the last month or so that I picked up is a Black Hole Charter Special, 6'8", and it's one of their more affordable ones. So that's like 200s. It's the guys that know Black Hole stuff. That stuff can go up to the roof like $500, $600.
Right.
So this one, it's supposed to throw 2 to 6 ounces. I wish it was like 1 to 4. Like if it was 1 to 4, then it would be like perfect. I came from using a Tsunami. I think it's like Trophy Series or something. And that was rated 1 to 4 ounces. So I loved the sensitivity of that.
Right.
It was a little bit lighter. But unfortunately, I was on a boat, a mate tied a uni to uni with 50-pound braid, and snapped a guide. I tried to fix the guide, and I was like, yeah, I was getting a new rod. So that's why I went when I got the Black Pole. But what's cool about that, though, it's pretty light. I have that paired with a 3000 Sauces. And literally, I did like the 1 finger balance test. That thing, I can balance it on 1 finger. Very, very light, but really good back. So I would say those are kind of like the 2 main setups that I use.
We have Andrew Sokol putting this out there, the Century Pro Togger. That's his recommendation. That's obviously Frank Mahalik's because Frank designed it.
Yeah.
I will say
I know a lot of guys use those. Yep.
Yeah, I actually, Frank let me use one of his. And I know I want to make a distinction there. There is a difference between Pro Toggers. The Pro Togger is actually the blank. The Frank Mahalik's Pro Togger is actually the one that's built by the Advanced Fishing team. That's the actual real one with the exact components and measurements and everything. So there's a difference. I have to say, Andrew, I love my custom rod that I use for Tog. I absolutely love it. I don't have one complaint. When I used the Century Pro Togger, it was a different level. It was it was really good. Frank knows what he's doing. He knew what he was doing when he put that together. And I know they spent a couple of years doing it, but it's definitely a good one. And it's similar to the description that you gave, Kristen, where it has the backbone, but it has that sensitivity, and you don't have to work incredibly hard for that hook set. And I've noticed in your videos, you have a very, what I'll call, shallow hook set. You're not slamming it, and you're not, whereas if you miss it, you're falling over backwards like half the people do, myself included. Yeah. By the way, I'm one of those guys. You have a very fluid and quick, short set, which makes it, which I think is why that rod that you're using works so well for you, because you can see the backbone kicks right in. Like you're setting that hook in inches.
Yep. That's all I need about. It's literally like that. It's, as soon as I get it tucked in my arm, it probably goes up about 3 feet. Generally, I have it. I mean, unless I'm like out of balance. Sometimes, like if I'm high, sticking a little bit higher than I really should be, depending on like my balance on the boat. Those are the times when I'm going all the way up. But most of the time, if I'm steady and balanced and my rod tip is pointed down like that, all I got to do is go about this high. I'm trying to get my hand in the camera this high, and I'm good. It sets up.
Yeah, that's that efficient hook set.
That's kind of how I feel about the Nexus rods too. The Jigging World ones that I use, the hook set comes in, or the background, I should say, loads up real fast, so I don't have to do, real crazy, as Al says, Jimmy Houston hook sets.
That's me. I'm definitely
Pro hook sets. That's what I call those.
That I do those. I don't know why. I do them on everything. But I have to use the rods to accommodate for my over setting. I'll use the softer tip quite often, and actually I see the problem when I go fishing for weak fish. I have to consciously tell myself I'm fishing for weak fish. I can't do that hook set, and I use a softer tip because it'll rip right through. It'll rip right through their mouth.
Have you ever had a fish land in your lap from doing that?
No. Actually, yes. Yeah. But that was freshwater. That was freshwater panfish. So it was perch. I think I
was like, you're hook setting on panfish.
I can't help it, Kristen. And this is with a little
perch fishing with you.
This is with it was with one of those little ugly stick ultralight trout rods too. So it doesn't even have any backbone. And boy, did that thing come flying out of the water straight at me. And I was in the kayak too. So there's nowhere to go. The only thing you can do is this. And it comes up and hopefully it hits off your hand. But
yeah.
I got it on video too.
Ed, you brought up, oh my bad. I was just like, Ed, you have brought up the jigging world. My backup rig rod has been the Black Demon.
Okay.
So medium heavy. Again, that one's 7.5 or 7.6, but I like that one too. That one's really pretty solid. It's definitely the action. Technically, I think it's more moderate. The terms sometimes I even get mixed up with it. Moderate fast, but it bends over. That rod bends over in half in a U.
Mm-hmm.
And so it definitely goes further down, whereas the Titan has a little bit less tip and a little bit more backbone, but that's still a solid rod. I've been liking that too.
Now, do you use a different rod versus rig versus jig? Like, do you have different, or do you use the same?
Yeah. So I'm conventional. Most of the time, I'm conventional all the time. Actually, me fishing spinning has been kind of. I usually only do that when I'm pier fishing or fishing from the land. And so kind of going back to going to a spinning setup on a boat has been a little bit different for me, because normally I'll just use a little low profile bait caster, and maybe the actual slow pitch Phoenix Titans. I use those, and that used to be my first like jig setup that I was switching up to. So now I switched it to using spinning for the jigging, and then sticking with conventional for rigs, and that works for me. It's just easier to me really to fight the fish, where if I need to use the rod as leverage and lay it on the rail, I like having that flexibility, as opposed to when I'm spinning, my arms are kind of up higher all the time through the duration of the fight.
What do you think of that, Ed? You like spinning?
I like spinning in the kayak.
Yeah.
On a boat, like today, I had two conventional setups. I had my jigging world I had a 1 to 4 ounce Nexus that I used for the jig, and then I had my custom from John that I used for the rigs. And in the kayak, I prefer the spinning rods, because I feel like it's easier to set the hook. I hold the rod lower, so it's easier to set, versus with this conventional, you're kind of crossed up with it. So it makes it a little weird. I don't know. That's just the way I do things, I guess.
Yeah, I personally like the conventional, but I use a low profile bait caster. I do like that. However, I'll insist it's my favorite until I use the spinning gear again, and then I miss the spinning gear. So I could go either way with that. I'm still stuck on that guy using the conventional rod upside down with the spinning.
And having a good day, and it wasn't like he was catching work. I'm like, every time I'm look over, he's catching a fish. And
maybe I think a spinning blank and what he wanted or something.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Yeah. If the rod is not splined, which most manufacturers don't do anymore, apparently, it doesn't matter. It's a casting rod versus spinning rod. It's probably virtually the same if it's not splined. If it is splined, then it's going to want to turn over in your hand. So maybe you couldn't afford it. I mean, look, none of these things are cheap.
Yeah.
Which is why I use a $200 reel instead of what you use, Kristen.
And you put Tog in front of anything.
I get that all the time. They're like, oh. I like things to match, and I like pretty nice things.
So you and Creeley must get along. John Creeley must get along really
just
well.
Fine. Yeah.
To him,
he tries to stretch my budget. I should get a Pro Togger. I'm supposed to get, what else am I going to get? The Mag Junior. If I left my fishing budget in his hands, he'll come back with a $3,500 tab, I'm sure.
You'd be broke.
Within seconds. You'd have pink, blue, and green Avid reels. You would have all that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. He says that to him, his equipment are also accessories. So
they are. I do remember that I was on Wisecracking, and Kevin Johnny saw the Maxell and the Phoenix Titan. He was like, "You got the rod and the reel to match perfectly." And I'm not even gonna lie, I picked up the Saltis to match the Black Hole, because I was like, black and blue reel. I think that has to be it. I wanted the excuse to buy the reel, and it matches, so I had to buy the reel. So
Nothing wrong with it. Hey, if you can afford it, it's a good reel and it looks good, you may as well get it. I have to put a pause on this conversation, because I'm going to show this one comment from Robbie Gilliam. I can outfish Rich. If not, I'll get his haircut. Okay, you can make fun of my haircut. That's fine. I think that Robbie doesn't believe that we're alive, so he's been throwing a whole bunch of things in the chat. So wanted to just bring this up here. We are live. And you might be able to outfish me, Robbie, and that's fine. But if you do, or if you do not, I am going to hold you to that. You're going to have to get your hair cut like mine.
I think he said he was from Texas, so we'll bring him up here and put him on a tugboat in the middle of February, and we'll see what his warm-blooded self could do.
Yeah.
See how he can hang.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing. I've mentioned to the other Salt Strong coaches, I said to Pat Ogletree, because he travels around and fishes all different states. And I said, when are you coming up here? Let's do some fall striper fishing. He looked at me like I was smoking all kinds of things. And he said, I don't go beyond Virginia. He's like, that's too cold.
We'll get him up here for flounder then.
I think Pat, if you're watching, I think I can get him to come up. So we'll give it a go. We'll try to get everybody to come up and we'll all go out together. Kristen, you come with us and
let's do it.
Make a day of it.
Kayak.
Oh boy. I told Rich, I don't feel comfortable in the kayak. I don't know. We had to start slow. It had to be fresh water or something where the water is not deeper than like 5 feet, like baby steps.
Yeah, you know what?
Small babies.
We don't need a kayak. Ed also has a boat. We'll just go out on his boat.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll just have to drop the anchor so that we don't have to worry about spot locking or anything.
Yeah, I don't have spot locks. So.
Yeah. Okay.
New wave.
So I want to make sure that we have any of the questions in here. Ed, have you kept track of some of these? I want to put this one up from Bill. That's Kristen. It's Cody from the J2. So just a hello from.
Hey, Cody.
Cody looks exactly like Bill Clinton in his profile picture.
John C put up one.
Resemblance.
John C put up one earlier. Has anyone caught the Burgal? I don't think any self-respecting tog fisherman would admit to it, but yes, we've all caught Burgal.
Yes. I caught one yesterday. Yep.
Well, so let me put this in there. I've only caught, I think, one that I remember. I remember the first one I ever caught, and that was 2 years ago fishing for tog. I had never caught one. And the only reason I caught it is because I foul hooked it. And I got it through the back, and then a black bass, a sea bass, took it, a really nice one. So I ended up pulling in the sea bass, and there it was with the foul hooked Burgal on there. So that was the first one I ever caught. Maybe I've caught 2 or 3 since then. But, there are a lot of fish that everybody assumes that people have caught. And I've been fishing nearly 50 years, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, North Carolina. And that was my first Burgal. I've never caught a blowfish. I have never caught a porgy.
Yeah, me neither.
I've caught a porgy.
Never caught a porgy.
My first porgy was it last fall? Yeah. So it took me a while to catch a porgy too.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Everyone thought that I was lying, but no, I've never caught one. So, I can't really comment on that when people want to talk about it.
There's one that you put up, Rich, from Mole Mentoring.
Yes.
Someone's asking for your information, Kristen. So,
sure thing.
They would like to speak to you and have you speak to youth. So that's really cool.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, that is cool. I love working with kids. So yeah, you can reach me at PhillyGirlFishing@gmail.com for those kind of longer, more, intricate things. For anytime I'm on the videos, if you're leaving comments on videos, feel free to comment right on the videos. I'm responsive. And then also on Instagram, PhillyGirlFishing is the handle.
Yes. And if you're not subscribed, I recommend it. And
absolutely.
By the way, it kind of works out well. I won't recommend following anyone unless I also follow them. But I guess, Ed, we don't ever have people come on unless we already followed them. So I guess it kind of works out that way. I've been following Kristen for a while, and still can't believe that we haven't gotten out there. There's a couple of other things in here.
Well, while you're doing that, Joe Billups wants to charter out the Osprey. So,
I would love that. That's one of my favorite party boats. Yeah.
They do work hard. I fished around them today, and they were pulling up anchor left and right. They were moving, trying to find fish. So,
and very efficient at anchoring, which I have to say, I'm going on so many boats now in the last year and a half, and you can tell the guys that really know how to anchor and very efficient. And when you're on a party boat, that could be 2 hours worth of the day if it was taking 15 minutes to pull anchor and you pull, going at 6, 7, 8 spots. You know what I mean? So they're very, very good at what they do. Definitely a good boat.
Yeah, I've been on the Osprey. I really like the Osprey. I have also been on the boats where it takes forever for them to anchor. Been on a boat where they lost an anchor too.
Yep.
Which really makes it a tough day.
See, like they should do that like soccer. They count the stoppage time. So the time that they take the anchor, they should tack on to the end of the trip so you can fish more.
I agree. I would love that. But
with that said, most of the good boats do it quickly, and when they don't, those are also the captains that'll stick around and stay longer. Especially if it's a full day trip. If it's a full day trip, I've been on the Osprey when they've stayed out longer. I've been on a lot of boats where they've stayed out longer. I've been on some where they didn't move all day. Nobody caught anything all day. And they went back early because nothing was happening. I was like, well, you could have burned more than the 3 gallons of gas to go to 2 miles outside of the inlet. But and as a matter of fact, I will say this before anyone asks what they are out of business. They are no longer in business. So it might be part of the reason why.
That's probably why.
Yeah,
might be.
So
I got one more question, and then James Flynn was asking what weight jigs for what depth.
Oh, so I'm gonna say this is gonna depend highly on your setup. So, for example, I think John Hopkins, Jig and Jerks, he just put up a video. He was fishing 100 feet with 10-pound braid and using 1 ounce jig.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I'm still very new at using a jig. So 1.5 tends to be like a sweet spot. I feel like it's not too heavy. It's not too light. Going to that 1 ounce, I caught a couple of good fish on 1 ounce jigs when it was like slack tide, but I'm not as comfortable with the lighter jigs because you really have to be confident on like feeling the bottom and knowing where your jig's at. So 1.5 works for me. 2 is like the biggest I'll really go. Like when I first started buying jigs, I was thinking, well, let me go heavier so I know I can feel the bottom. I was thinking about it like fluke fishing. I've heard guys say it. Maybe you guys can kind of help clarify, but heard guys say don't use like a 3 ounce jig or heavier because it's going to be too heavy for the Tautog to think it's a crab, because crabs are never going to weigh more than 2 ounces or whatever. So
I've heard that.
Besides the fact they're bulky, you might as well fish a rig at that point if you're going to 4 ounces. So, my suggestion is if you're really, really new at it, start at 2 ounces, but 1.5 to me is a really good sweet spot. And I would say I feel more comfortable fishing the jig at like 50, 60 feet. Cool. Like once I was getting at 90, 100 feet, I caught fish on it. Was I comfortable? Did I really feel it? I kind of got lucky and was testing it and kind of lifting the rod tip a little bit to see if I had weight on it all of a sudden. And that's how I brought up that almost 6-pound fish yesterday. So, yeah, I think it's going to depend on, again, your line weight too. The thinner the line, the less current resistance. The more current resistant it will be. Am I saying it the right way? In other words, the current will not affect it the thinner the line is. So for me, 15-pound braid has kind of been my sweet spot. Some guys will go as low as 10, and some guys I know fish 30. So.
Yeah. I think Halkias, if I remember correctly, he said he doesn't have anything over 1 ounce on his boat, never will. And I believe he fishes 10 pounds. He goes real light noodle rods. He said the more noodle, the better on that rod. So he wants a super bendy, flexible rods. Kind of guess similar to the guy in your last video, Kristen, that was fishing next to you. It looked like he was going to snap his rod every single time. He had some nice fish though.
That's the OTI. He loves that rod, and I've seen him he caught another 10-pounder. That was when we were on No Limit. I think it was like 10 or 11 pounds on that rod, and he even flipped it like the guy crazy with that little noodle rod. But yeah, the noodle rods, they are fun. I will say that if you want an exciting time, use those, because that will make even a 5-pound fish feel like it's a 15-pounder.
Yeah, I caught a. Speaking of the rods that just have that backbone, and it doesn't look like they do, but they do. The Weapon Junior that John's trying to get you to buy. I used Quaz when we were out fishing the one day, and I caught a striped bass on that, and I could have flipped that fish. Now this thing was doubled over. I mean, totally doubled over, but it had so much backbone still in it that I could have flipped the fish. and it was not a small striped bass. It was probably around 30 inches. So being able to flip that, that's some serious backbone in those. So
to go back to the jig thing though,
I wanted to go back to that too. Yeah, go ahead.
It's still fresh in my brain because I was fishing them today. So we fished in like 50 feet of water and like 90 feet of water, and I fished a 1 ounce jig in both depths. The 60 foot, it was definitely more responsive. I could feel a lot more. 90 feet couldn't feel a whole lot. I think it's got more to do with the current though, as far as the weight goes that you're going to use. Like, I don't think like one size fits all as far as weight. So like if the current's ripping, you're going to obviously want more weight to keep it down. So like limiting yourself to like a 1 or a 1.5 or 2, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. And like you were saying with the 3 ounce jigs or 4 ounce jigs.
Yeah.
I don't use, so the molds I use don't go past 3 ounce, but I caught a 7-pounder 2 weeks ago on a 3 ounce jig. So I don't know that statement kind of holds water.
Yeah,
I have plenty of anecdotal evidence to say it doesn't, although a lot of people that are really good tog fishermen insist it's true. But yet I've literally seen videos of people catching on 4.5, 5 ounce jigs. So
wow. Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, well,
I don't know. And I think those are people that want
to debunk then.
Yeah, I think those people, they have their favorite rod and they want to use it. So if they cut the rig off, they want to use it with the jig. And I get that. If you're going to have a $500, $600, $700 setup, like some of these people, or $1,000 setup, like some of these people do, they want to use different. They don't want to use different rods all the time. They have their one setup and that's what they use. So I get it, but I have seen videos of people catching them with, the really large jigs. So,
yeah. Good to
and
know.
Ben was asking, crabbing and fishing, how many fish did I catch in 50 foot? We had more bites in the shallower water. We caught more fish in shallower, but more quality in the deeper water. But the bites were much more scarce.
So you're getting your money's worth. And then Heaven and Elle, your buddy, Kristen, has a question. What shaped tog jig do you prefer, if there is one?
Oh, yeah. I like the, I've heard it referred as the boxing glove shape. I don't think I have one up here in my office. Yeah, I don't have one up here in my office, but the one where it's a little bit flatter and it kind of look like a fist. That's kind of my go-to. A lot of times I'm using Salvo's jigs and he uses that, like when I ask him to send me jigs, like that's the shape that I like. It just kind of lays flatter for me. I like that versus it sitting up higher with the banana jig. So yeah, boxing glove style.
Gotcha. I'm also not a fan of the banana style. Doesn't seem to work well for me. Plus, I think they lay over too easily on the sides.
Mm-hmm.
Which our whole existence is a lie.
Why?
Because those are the ones you use.
No, not the one. Well, maybe she's talking about a different one. I'm talking about the thinner ones where the jig goes down and they tend to tip.
With the real long hook. I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah,
my mistake.
They tend to tip over and get
what you're talking about.
That's like super snag, especially in a kayak or if you're on a drift or even with a spot lock where you're going to be moving a little bit. They just tend to, for me, just get snagged like crazy. Yeah. So, all right. So we're up at the hour. Kristen, is there anything, and I think that we got to all the questions, is there anything that you haven't shared with everyone that you feel they would benefit from as they consider going out and getting on the water for tog?
Ooh, let's see. We've run through rigs versus jigs, party boats, different states. I will say, boat selection, I think will definitely kind of make a difference, right? So there's a lot of times reading those reports. If you can travel, I'd say, hey, everybody, if you can travel, Rhode Island is like a great place to learn. You just get more opportunities. I think, between the last fall and winter, I probably went on like 10, 12 trips to New Jersey and I probably caught 3 keepers. Versus the 3 trips I had went to Rhode Island and Delaware for last winter and spring, I caught more keepers in those 3 trips than the 12 in New Jersey. So it's one of those things where practice makes perfect. You have to figure out your gear and how it feels on the bite, and you'll get it. It's definitely a learning curve, but just got to get out there, try it, keep going until you get it. That's all I would say. Just like anything in life, really, the more you do it, the more you practice, you'll get better at it. So, don't turn away. I've seen that a couple of times in the comments in my videos. Where like, man, I tried tog fishing 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and I sucked at it, and I gave up. And I'm like, hey, like, let's pick it up and try it again. So if you don't have a good trip, don't feel bad. It's tough, but once you get it, it's so rewarding.
Yeah, Tog, man, I don't care who you are, what records you have, you're going to have the tough days. Sometimes that bite just isn't there. And to your point about being willing to travel, look, it's for the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. It's not like Florida where you can go out a couple days a week. You got to pick your time. We're not going twice a week anymore, or even once a week. So I look at it this way, and this is the conversation that my wife and I had. Look, I'm not going as much, so I'm going to spend some money to go further to get on better fish. So when I get out there, I have the better chance at it, which is, Rhode Island is right. It's not that far. It's a drive, but it's not really that far, especially I'm with you, Kristen. I'm even driving further than you, 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get to the water anyway. Or I can go 3 hours, 3.5 hours and be in Ocean City, Maryland. It can be 4, 5, 6 hours, and I can be in Rhode Island. It's just worth it. So I look at it from that standpoint, and maybe that's just my way of rationalizing. But if I'm not going fishing as often, I'm not burning that gas every single week. I may as well spend it on a really good boat in a really good location so that I can get into a really good bite. And Rhode Island's looking good. New York is still looking really good. I've seen a lot of, I mean, Halkias had his pictures up yesterday. They limited out. Beautiful fish.
Yep.
They're getting them all over New Jersey now. I've seen some down in Maryland, although I think Maryland hasn't quite kicked up yet. They're getting
but I do have a friend that he caught like an 11 or 12 pounder.
Yeah.
Was it? Actually, it might have been 13. I don't know. These guys are catching like monster size fish. It's ridiculous. But yeah, in the early season, they're catching 13s down there. So, in a month, I'm sure it'll be even more insane as the fish kind of start being more active down there as the water cool down.
Yeah, and keep in mind, people, this is something that John Hutchinson just mentioned. He was told that all the tog have moved offshore. Well, they haven't, because the water temperature hasn't dropped yet. Once you get into the mid to low 40s, the vast majority are going to be offshore, but offshore, near shore and offshore, they're not necessarily going to be out 10 miles. They could be out in 50 feet of water, half a mile off the beach. It just means they're moving deeper, not necessarily that they're moving far. So I would definitely don't give up on the inshore bite. The backwater bite is still there. The near shore is absolutely still there all the way up and down the coast. And it's just going to get better in Delaware and Maryland, which again, they're getting some nice fish. I see them every day in the reports in Salt Strong. I see them online in Facebook. I see them all over. They're getting them, but they're still waiting for it to turn on, and it's coming soon. So, all right. Well, Kristen, thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I'm gonna keep asking you to come back. And
oh yeah, listen, just let me know.
We're definitely going to do that. So everyone, again, Kristen is PhillyGirlFishing on YouTube. Go over, check out the channel. Some great content up there. I'm looking forward to this Rhode Island one coming out so that I can take a look at that thing, because quite frankly, your video before that was fire enough. And now this is going to be even better.
Just keep getting better. I don't know how much better it can get, but I'm all for it. So, hey.
Man, I'm looking forward to it. And for those that are in the live stream and watching a replay, we will be back next Monday night at 8:00. And Ed doesn't even know who this guest is. This is still tentative. We're still trying to get it nailed down. But Ed, you're going to be very happy that I got a hold of one of these gentlemen that did something really cool that you want to do.
Am I going to be jealous?
No, you're going to be on the thing. You're going to get to talk to these guys who did something really cool out on the water over the course of a week. So I'm hoping to get them on next week. And once we get it locked down, we'll let you guys know who it is. But if you ever wanted to go out and just fish and just do your thing with friends. This is going to be an episode coming up, hopefully again next week for you guys. So it'll be a really cool one for everyone to check out. So with that said, until next week, until next episode, everyone, forget about the weather, forget about the cold. Get out there, get on the water, and get some tight lines.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.